good afternoon if you're listening live, or a big welcome to anyone that's listening back afterwards to episode 203 of the Tree Talk. A lot to get through today. All-Star nominations, big hurling quarter-finals. There's final round Premier Intermediate hurling. We've ladies football finals. We've sport from abroad to get through today, which is a special. I'm here in another podcast as well. If you're listening and you're enjoying us on Spotify, rate us. If you're listening to or watch on YouTube, like it or comment it. It all goes towards expanding our little network of people watching Tree Talk. But the most important thing is to stay tuned for all this week's Limerick GAA or the weekend coming, and we look back on the weekend.
Especially in the game, we get out with what you put into it. It's like a walk of life. If you're good enough, go out and get it, no more about it.
Not so much control in the centre of the field from Kilkenny as Richie Bennett sends it high and over the bar.
Your mother sends you down to the shop for a pound's worth of goods and she gives you 50 pence. You can't get the pound's worth of goods, can you?
Just about kept in. Oh, well done, Shawnee Buckley. To do that to Tomas O'Shea, he deserves to score from here. One of the highlights of the Sunday game.
Limerick went out there from the word go today. No more about it. They made all the running, that was it. Put the ball over the bar and the back of it, and that's it. No ifs, no buts.
Is there much time left? We have a couple of injuries. Here comes Kieran Carey. Carey leading the charge of the right brigade. 45 metres out. He's a chance to score. He's put it high.
There's no sympathy in this game for anybody.
We've a load to get through, Matt. So instead of asking you how I am, I'm going to presume you're okay on this Wednesday afternoon. That's very hit and miss weather-wise. It's raining 1 minute and it's dry the next. But a couple of hours ago, we got good news, probably to be expected in the grand scheme of things. Caoimhe Costello nominated for an All-Star for her performances in the Camogie Championship. And I know it was a while back into the summer now, but I suppose when you reflect on what Caoimhe, especially in that memorable middle run of games where Limerick had lost 2 in a row and she almost single-handedly pulled Limerick into the quarterfinals. She was awarded the Player of the Month for June. She's been nominated for an All-Star in the half-forward line. I feel like you're after freezing there, but if not, what do you make of the news, Matt?
Jack, sure, I'm absolutely delighted. Happiest congratulations to Caoimhe. And as you rightly said, this is not unexpected news at all, Jack, for those of us that have been watching her career over a number of years now. Of course, she was captain of the Limerick team that won the 2014 All-Ireland Minor A Championship, which was a hugely significant achievement for Limerick. But she has gone on from there, and if there's any element of surprise, Jack, about it, it is that Caoimhe hasn't been nominated before this. But this year, she was simply absolutely phenomenal. I saw her in a couple of games with the Limerick Senior Camogie team. She was simply incredible. Like her contribution to the team, as distinct from her scoring prowess, like her contribution is absolutely fantastic and phenomenal as well. Oh, look, Jack, it's a richly deserved accolade for her. And I will be very, very disappointed. And I will be very, very disappointed with the system, and I don't want to preempt anything if Caoimhe is not named on the 15. She has been absolutely outstanding. I haven't seen a better forward than her this year, and she's getting her just reward, and happiest congratulations to her. She's been a phenomenal servant of Limerick Camogie, and she richly deserves any kudos that are thrown her way.
Yeah, I'd have to second everything you said there. Again, almost single-handedly pulled Limerick into the quarterfinals. Did she get, was it 2-10 out of 2-11 in the win over Doon, which is a crucial win for Limerick. She got 6 points against Antrim. I think, was it 9 points she got against all in the space of about a fortnight. So it just goes to shows the performance she's putting in. She does have it tough, though, with the players around her, Matt. Abby Flynn of Waterford, who obviously got to the semi-final, then Denise Gall and Julianne Moore from Kilkenny, who went on to win the competition. But you're saying, you're setting out your stall early that she deserves the All-Star.
I am setting it out, and I'll make an apology to nobody for doing it. I think she richly deserves it. You're talking there about her scoring record. But what I'm talking about, as well as her scoring record, is her contribution to team performances. He was a good team player, and you know, I'd be desperate disappointed if she doesn't make the cut.
Yeah, she's a brilliant team player and she's a good leader. She's captained the side before, and I suppose it dovetails nicely into Adair's run in the junior or in the intermediate championship now. Obviously they won the junior last year and they're back in the final. They beat last year's finalists Monaleen in the semi-final. They play Crockett Finney in that final, but you know, Queen was one of those players as if for Adair, and you would have seen with the players they had, it's probably no real surprise, but considering they were in junior last year, you know, it's a brilliant achievement to follow up a promotion with a final and possibly another promotion.
Yeah, it is, Jack. And I saw their juniors playing last year, and I saw them winning the county championship. And I made up my mind at that stage that they would not at all be lost in their new environment at intermediate level, and that they would be contenders. That they would be contenders to go on and win again this year. And I think when we were previewing the Camogie Championship at the start of the year, I may be subject to correction on this, but I think we flagged the two teams that are in the final now, and you're right, it's a good Adair team, and you know, it's a huge scalp. Like Monaleen are a very balanced side, and they are a coming side, and we saw how difficult they were to beat in last year's final. It took 2 games for Cappamore to beat them. And, you know, they would have come into this year's championships as heir apparent to the crown, but Adair were reading from a different script. And I'm not at all surprised that Adair are in the county intermediate final, Jack.
No, I did go with Adair. I'm not sure if I had said Crope. I definitely fancied Adair from having seen them last year and the quality of players at their disposal. But I suppose, first and foremost, a big congratulations to Quiva on her All-Star nomination, and please God she can be rewarded one. Their performances deserve. But I suppose moving into this weekend's action, Matt, and we will start with the hurling. We'll get to last week's football towards the end of the pod, but you know, 2 huge games, and it feels like a long time ago since we had hurling. I know it's only going to be 3 weeks, but we'll start with Kildimo Pallaskenry and Doon this Saturday afternoon. For Kildimo Pallaskenry, it's first quarterfinal in 85 years. For Doon, they're looking to reach a 6th semi-final in a row. But it is interesting, Matt. You know, I don't know if you've ever seen these teams play. You can correct me on that, but I don't know if you've ever seen these teams play in a championship game. So it is really, really mouth-watering.
It is, and it's really novel, and they certainly haven't clashed sticks at senior level. And you get the sense that normally when a team comes through like Kildimo Pallaskenry, you'd be saying, no, they're into the knockout stages. They're 60 minutes away from a semi-final place. That they're in bonus territory. I'm not so sure that applies to Kildimo Pallaskenry. Kildimo Pallaskenry are in the quarterfinal because they richly deserve to be there with their performances. Like, they didn't have the best start to the campaign this year, Jack, in that they lost to newly promoted Mungret St. Paul's in the opening round. But by God, did they make it up since, you know, with 4 straight wins, and did it in style. And I suppose the real turning point that clinched it for them was when John Chalk got that late goal to beat Ballybrown. That probably sealed the deal for them. And, you know, this is an early chance for them to benchmark themselves against what they will be coming up week in, week out next year in Section A. And I would certainly say that Kildimo Pallaskenry are not going to Kilmallock on Saturday afternoon to make up numbers. Now, they come up against a very, very strong Doon team who tick an awful lot of boxes. Now, they did have a few disappointments, I suppose, in the group campaign, but I suppose in the swings and roundabouts, you know, they were unlucky to lose to Napiersic in the opening round when they were hit by that late Napiersic tsunami that rescued what would less than 10 minutes to go look most unlikely.
Yeah.
And then they probably had their luck when Patrick Cummins got that very late goal against Patrickswell. And we saw them then in their clash with Kilmallock down in Fedimore, and you know, they both sides were, you know, it was a stellar cast, you know, for that game, but both sides were down some of their stars on that particular occasion. For instance, Barry Murphy didn't play, Adam English didn't play for Doon, Paddy O'Brien, Micheál Houlihan, Oisin O'Reilly didn't play for Kilmallock. They lost Shane O'Brien after 5 minutes. But, you know, Doon and Kilmallock on that particular semi-final served up a game that was, you know, befitting of a county that has won 4 of the last 5 All-Irelands. We got it was a little microcosm of why Limerick hurling is in such a strong place at the moment. So they will be facing a very strong Doon team. And as I said, it will be their first opportunity and an early opportunity for them to benchmark themselves, you know, with what life is going to be like in Section A in 2023.
Yeah, I think you make a good point there, and it's almost like a free hit in that regard. They're going to play Doon next year anyway, regardless. But you know, these quarterfinals don't come around very often. We've seen a lot of teams get to these kind of stages. The likes of Maru Boher were there, and I think as recently as 18, and Knockany were there now, and they'll be an intermediate next year, the two of them. You know, so it can turn quite quickly. So for Kildimo, it'd be kind of strike while the iron is hot. And to be fair to Kildimo, they've been juggling hurling and football for 11 weeks on a row. The footballers obviously lost at the weekend, but they consolidated their position as a senior club, as a dual senior club, and not only that, the only dual senior club to get to 2 quarterfinals. So with the football in the rearview mirror, you know, they did the job they set out to do there and survive, and not only to survive, got to a quarterfinal, but now they can put all their eggs into the hurling basket. That it is pretty much a free hit for Kildimo Pallaskenry, and one you wouldn't put past them with all they've achieved in recent years.
No, I certainly wouldn't put anything past them. Doon will have to tread very warily in this one, Jack, because free hit or whatever, you know, Kildimo are going to give this everything. You know, they probably see themselves into bonus territory, but bonus territory that they deserve to be in, and they're there for a reason, Jack. But you see, South Liberties and Kildimo Pallaskenry are confronted at the weekend with breaking through a barrier that no team from Section B has done since the present format came into being, and that is a team from Section B winning a quarter-final. But that record just can't go on forever, because we were wondering there, or we were lamenting there for a couple of years, that the gap wasn't closing. But by God, Jack, it was very, very close last year. We could have had the two teams from Section B were distinctly unlucky that they didn't make it to the semi-finals, i.e. Adair and South Liberties.
You know, and conversely to that, Patrickswell and Kilmallock obviously got the springboard off that quarter-final to go on and reach the county final. So whoever comes through this weekend's games will be looking for more of the same. But talking about Patrickswell and South Liberties there, you know, Patrickswell were very lucky to get past Adair last year, and South Liberties were very unlucky to fall to Kilmallock. They're meeting this weekend. Obviously, Patrickswell haven't been the same as they were last year. Losing a player, Keane Lynch, is going to do that show. We spoke at length about that. But I suppose for South Liberties going into the final game, it wasn't in their hands. Things worked out and they got through, and they're going to be in Section 2 next year again after finishing second. But they'll want to go one further than last year. And if they produce a performance like they did in the Gaelic rounds last year against Kilmallock, they could very easily overturn Patrickswell on Sunday afternoon.
They could possibly, Jack, but it will take that level of performance no less. And you must remember they scored 5 goals against Kilmallock on that occasion, which was fantastic. And at one stage they looked as if they were literally careering to a place in the semi-final, but Kilmallock revived and got back into the game. And well, I suppose it's fair to say Kilmallock never during that game really lost touch. But if they were to replicate that performance in Kilmallock on Sunday, it's going to make life very, very difficult for Patrickswell. Like, it's a Patrickswell team without Cian Lynch and without the huge influence of Brian Murray, the goalkeeper, who has retired. And as we have flagged in this particular medium over recent weeks, replacing Brian Murray necessitated robbing Peter to pay Paul. In that they had to withdraw Jason Gillan, who we all know what he did in the quarterfinal last year with those 4 points in as many minutes late in the game to transform what looked like a defeat into victory. And he's gone back into goals now, so he's going to be a loss to the forward line, but he certainly is a very, very, very worthy replacement of Brian Murray. But I saw Patrickswell, Jack, in the penultimate round against the Doon, and I thought they did very, very well. And they looked to be home and hosed when in injury time. It was level going into injury time when they struck over 2 points. Calvin Carroll got the first. He had come on as a sub, as far as I recall. And Dermot Burns from distance, of course, got the second. Dermot, who's captain of Patrickswell this year. But they were undone by that late Patrick Cummins goal. But they went on then and beat Adair. Margin of victories between Patrickswell and Adair count for very little, Jack, because the stakes are so high. It's one of those most full-blooded local derbies that we have in this county. And we have seen, and it's a cliche to say form goes out the window when those two meet. But it was a question in the fifth round for Patrickswell. They were in a place now that they hadn't been for a number of years, fighting to stay in the knockout phase of the championship. But they got the job done, Jack. And I would say that we have seen the best of Patrickswell in the last two games, which augurs well, going forward into the knockout phase. So Patrickswell don't do rolling over, Jack. They're not 20-time Limerick champions for nothing, And like in the absence of Cian Lynch, we have seen the enormous contribution of his fellow countymen, Dermot Burns and Anne Gillan, who really, really have taken the leadership thing by the scruff of the neck. And Patrickswell will be formidable on Saturday and on Sunday, sorry. And if South Liberties are to overturn them, anything less and maybe even more than the level of performance they showed in last year's quarterfinal will be necessary.
Yeah, and I think for Patrickswell at the start of the year, and we spoke about it, that they probably would have been looking at the quarterfinal as to win their season would probably start now. They did have to negotiate games and, left it late to get through, but they probably would have thought, they'd have enough to get through, not on form. And now is the time they do have to hit the form because, South Liberties will be really up for it. And yes, Doon and Patrickswell are favourites, there's no doubt about that. And it's looking like we're going to have the same four again. But as you rightly pointed out there in the previews, there is scope for KP and South Liberties. And they'll both come with confidence that if either Patrickswell or Doon fail to show up, that they'll be there to pounce. But, interesting games. We have our favourites, but I'll get you to call. I'll give predictions later on in the podcast. Moving on then to the Premier Intermediate Hurling Championship. And it always delivers, but I think it's delivering more this year than ever before. I'll get up the table for you now if we can wrap our heads around it. This weekend we've Knockany versus Newcastle West, Drumnat Laka versus Glenroe, Bruff versus Cappamore, and Effin versus Monaleen. And I might talk through the permutations I have there beside me, and I'll just put myself up here beforehand. But this is when you're going to have to read off a screen because there's so much play for me. Before we get into it, we've never had a stage where into the final round there's no team qualified.
No team qualified, Jack, and 6 notionally at least in the race for 4 places. I'm making the point always that this competition never fails to deliver surprise, excitement, and good hurling. And it has been one of the most successful competitions that we have in the county. And this year is absolutely phenomenal altogether. The only thing that's decided going into the last day, believe it or not, is that Nakani are relegated and that Cappamore are going nowhere. They can't be relegated, nor they can't qualify. So after that, Jack, I tried to do the permutations for the match program and on the paper. I did them all on the basis that there'll be wins, Matthew, but were there to be a draw, it should scupper most of those,
Yeah, just to look through here what I have, we'll start with Monaleen, who topped the table. I said a winner or a draw. They play F and a winner or a draw will be good enough for them. I think we're clear with that. If they lose...
We're clear on that.
Yeah, what comes in, if they lose, then they need a lot to go against them. Monaleen look to be the team in pole position. I think it's fair to say they're on 9 points.
Monaleen are vulnerable insofar as that were Bruff and Glenroe to win. Sorry, am I right there?
Well,
Bruff, Glenroe and Newcastle West to win. They'd all moved to 9 points, with the other three decided by scoring difference. And here, I think Newcastle West are at a disadvantage unless they have a big win over Knockany at the weekend. Would that be your analysis of it, Jack?
Yeah. Looking at here, Monaleen are on 9 points with a plus 16 score difference. Effin are on 8 with a plus 15. Bruff, Glenroe, and Newcastle all on 7. Bruff plus 14, Glenroe plus 12, and as you said, Newcastle are plus 2. So when it comes to scoring difference, Newcastle are the outliers, but they do play Knockany, who are already relegated. Now we've seen relegated sides put it up in the final round already. The Blackrock are one that stand out in that final round in the senior championship. But Effin then, if they win, they're through. They know that as well because they're playing Monaleen. They'll leapfrog Monaleen and they'll top the group as well. So, 4 go through, top plays 4th, second plays 3rd. So they'll be playing the 4th place team. But again, if they lose, then they could miss out. If the other 3 teams win, it won't go to scoring difference. So if Effin lose, Bruff, Glenroe, and Newcastle will go ahead of them. And then you have the 3 sides on 7. I have it there: Bruff, Glenroe, and Newcastle West. So if they all win, they'll all go to 9 points. And it'll definitely go to scoring difference then because top 4 go through. It might include Monaleen in that. Monaleen lose. It might include Effin if Monaleen and Effin play out a draw. But simply put, really is Newcastle have to win and either hope the other 2 lose or improve their scoring difference. Bruff and Glenroe will know that they're comfortably ahead of them in that regard, that a win should be enough. But it's never that simple in Premier Intermediate. But if you were to simplify it for those 3 teams, that's probably the basis of it.
Yeah, but that is no. If one of the other 2 teams, Glenroe and Newcastle, so we could have head to heads. Well, we possibly could, but it's unlikely. You could have a scenario where Bruff and Newcastle West would lose, Glenroe would lose, and then you'd have 4 teams on 7 points.
Yeah, that's where Drumnatlecca come in. They have to beat Glenroe.
Yeah, and they have to beat them handsomely because they're minus 11 at the moment.
They are. Yeah, they are. They will. 4th is all, or they could finish 3rd. No, they can't. They can only finish 4th. What I have for Drumnatlecca, they need to win to have a chance. If they win and Newcastle and Bruff also win, they'll qualify with their head-to-head against Glenroe. So they're hoping for results elsewhere. That's where their scoring difference wouldn't matter.
That's not correct. No, that's not correct, Jack. That's not correct. If Newcastle West and Bruff win and Glenroe lose, it'll be Monaleen, Effin, Bruff, and Newcastle West going through.
Yes, you are right. Yeah, I'm 16 there. Yeah, listen to what Matt said there. Just on head-to-heads altogether, Bruff beat Glenroe. and they beat Effin as well, but they lost to Newcastle, and Newcastle and Glenroe drew. So those 3 teams on 7. That's how the head-to-heads work there. Yeah. So to clarify there, Drumnad Lacca need to win and need to win big, and to hope Newcastle and Effin, one of those, lose also.
You could say
To
now
leave
that
3
Drumnad
on 7.
are looking for huge favours. I suppose you could say they're into snooker territory, to use that parlance. It's going to be difficult for them, but notionally at least they have a chance of going through. But it will necessitate a huge win against Glenroe on Saturday, which I think is probably unlikely.
Yeah, Glenroe's 12 and Drumnad Lacca are -9. So they'd
Sorry,
have to win by 11
-9.
points. They'd have to win by 11 points to get ahead of Glenroe, first of all, and hope Newcastle lose. If they won by 11, Newcastle only have to lose by 2 points for them to get ahead of them. But I mean, this is all hearsay. But that's how we are in the Premier Intermediate Championship. Always delivers. Sometimes too much for us to even comprehend. But I'll get your predictions in a while. But it is Knockany and Newcastle West, Monaleen and Effin, Bruff, Cappamore, and Drumnad Lacca versus Glenroe. But as I said, I'll get your predictions in a while for that.
But Jack, before you get my predictions, can I give you a health warning about predictions that I have a peerless record in being hopelessly wrong in predicting the Premier Intermediate.
Yeah, I think the Premier Intermediate is where a lot of men fall down in their predictions. Which is brilliant in a way, for a competition like that. But it's so
I
hard to
sometimes
call.
think that the intermediate teams got it in for me,
Yeah, well, I'd say you don't mind getting it wrong as long as Glenroe are in the Final Four, whichever way it pans out. But it will be very interesting, regardless of who comes through, that we will have 4 teams that will have finished very close in the table. We'll say like Monaleen can get to 10, Monaleen can get to 11, Effin can get to 10, Bruff, Glenroe, Newcastle, Drumnad Lacca can get to 7. There won't be a huge gap between any teams that play, especially after 7 rounds of games. But it's brilliant to see.
But what the upshot of it all, Jack, will be that we'll have 2 mouth-watering semi-finals.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, whatever way it pans out in the knockout stages, it's going to be very interesting. We also have quarterfinals in the championship to look forward to this weekend. I'll just say out the fixture, Matt, and you can just give us a small, I suppose, indication of where you think it's going to go. Starting this Friday with Patrickswell versus Doon. Patrickswell obviously won all their games. Doon second in Group 3 to St. Kieran's. Patrickswell continue their winning run.
The first thing I would say, Jack, is full credit to both Patrickswell and Doon. These are senior clubs, and this is their second sides. It's a fantastic tribute to them. And to add to that, Jack, the performance of Doon in winning the East Junior B Hurling Championship last weekend when they beat Fedham in the final. That's a phenomenal achievement on the part of Doon. To be contesting senior and junior at such a high level, and later in the year Junior B. It's very hard to call this one, and because we're into the territory now of where groups are crossed, and it's very, very hard to determine which of the groups was the stronger of the groups. You're asking me to call it, toss a coin, Jack, between these two. I look probably Doon. Doon are on a winning run. It can become contagious, and look, I cautiously go for Doon. That's it.
Yeah, I saw Doon first time, but I'm going to go Patrickswell on this one. Just they won their 5 group games, which isn't easy to do themselves, and Kieran's the only ones to do that. So I'm just going to cautiously go Patrickswell. That's Friday. Then on Saturday afternoon in Fina, we've Drum Broadford versus Castletown. And I'd always be of the opinion that Castletown Ballygran are one of the top contenders. It hasn't gone like that in recent years, and Drum are a coming side in both codes again. Another difficult one to call.
Yeah, but like the Junior A Championship is serving up some mouth-watering, games, and we've only to reflect back 12 months, Jack, to the last year in the Munster Clubs Championship, when Caroline ran Ballygiblin to a point, desperate and lucky not to win the game. And Ballygiblin subsequently went on to the All-Ireland, win the Munster Championship, and contest the All-Ireland final, in which they were beaten by a point from a sideline ball by Moonkyne, I think, that will give you an idea that it's a very, very decent standard. I have been a proponent of the chances of Castletown Ballygran for a number of years now, because I think they're a very, very strong side. Now, they've lost Ben O'Herlihy, who would be former Limerick minor player. He's gone abroad. No doubt he has left the gap after him, but I still fancy him. Castletown Ballygran, it has to turn for him sometime. And in fairness to Castletown Ballygran, Jack, in this competition, they haven't enjoyed the best of luck in recent years at times. Look, I fancy them. I find it hard to back against them. Culliher, they're not long down from intermediate. They'll have that experience. But I'm going for Castletown Ballygran.
Yeah, I'm going to go against you on this one again. I have been for Castletown Ballygran for as long as we've been doing this podcast, but there's just something about Drum this year that I think that they'll get the job done. The following day on Sunday, then in the Bog Garden with Cricora and Kildimo. And I remember when these pairings were put together, I think the winner will come from this. I know it's way out to be calling things like that, but I just have a feeling that whoever can come through this game could go on to be crowned champions. Who I think will win is for a different day, but again, very, very hard to call this one.
Very, very hard to call. Like Kildimo have been flirting around for a number of years, in the concluding stages. They have been pretenders to the crown. I think this one is going to be a very, very tight one as well. Like if you were to pick, despite the randomness of the draw, and there was no draw took place in this time because the pairings came, but you had the group stages originally were drawn at random. You couldn't sit down and pick more difficult games to decide. Kildimo have great experience at this level, Jack. But then there is Cricora Minister and a certain Mr. Cathal O'Neill. I'm leaning towards Cricora Minister in this one.
Yeah, it's been a long time since Cricora were in a knockout game from my, I suppose, research, and I think they'll be keen to make up for last time, especially with a player the caliber of Cathal O'Neill. And, sometimes a player like that can be the difference in these games. And finally, then on Tuesday evening in Doon, the meeting of St. and Kilteely Drumkeen. Kilteely obviously have some very nice hurdlers, but I think for me, St. Kieran's have been steadily building over the last 18 to 24 months, and I think they're going to get through this game anyway, if I was to give them my 2 cents.
Yeah, I agree with you, and their comparison with Kildimo Pallaskenry is valid, in that they were duly involved between the Senior Football Championship and the Junior A Hurling Championship. Now, they bowed out of the Senior Football Championship last Saturday. So their full focus, we'll say, for the 8 or 10 days leading into the game in Doon on Tuesday night will be on hurling. Now, they were unlucky in the county final last year, and they will fancy going one better this year. And for me, Kilteely Drumkeen only scrope into the quarterfinals. They had a bit of luck on the last day and the last round, and for me it's St. Kieran's in that one, Jack.
Yeah, so that's our four quarter-final ties in the junior hurling championship. Again, very, very hard to call, but they're not like 4 games over 5 or 6 days. The first game Friday, then you've Saturday, Sunday, and you've Tuesday. You can get to all of them if they're not clashing else, but they're none of them clashing with each other, which is a good thing to see. Moving on to ladies football, Matt, and this weekend we have a host of ladies football finals, but we'll stick with Cappamore on Sunday. The doubleheader, the intermediate and junior finals in the intermediate. We have Ula versus Knockcaney, and then in the junior we have a Han versus Galty Gales. Starting with the intermediate, and you touched there a minute ago on teams getting to a final and coming back the following year to try and get the win. Ula are in the same situation. They're only 60 minutes away from bouncing back to last year, and they played a Drum team that had won the championship the previous year, so they'll feel like probably Drum shouldn't have been in the competition last year. But you have to fancy Ula this weekend.
Yeah, they're looking strong, but just to give you a small bit of a background to it, they will have to tread very cautiously in Cappamore on Sunday, because in the group stages, Jack, Knockcaney suffered heavy defeats to both Ula and Maru Bohar, and they still qualified for the knockout stages, but they have already avenged the defeat by Maru Bohar, whom they have beaten in the semi-final. So I'm sure that Ula will be taking cognizance of that this week as they prepare for the final. But Ula won the County Junior A Championship in 2016, Jack, and they have been there or thereabouts at intermediate level. They have never been below a semi-final level in the interim years. So they nearly see it as their right this year to go one better than they did last year. Now, it was very close last year. It was 110 to 2-4 in the final.
Yeah.
And as you rightly flagged, Jack, because of the pandemic, there had been no promotion or relegation the previous year, which meant that Drum Bradford were allowed to defend their title, and that they did. But certainly they got a stern examination from Ula, and Ula will be looking to go one better this year. Looking at the lineouts, they would appear to have the wherewithal in terms of experience, because it's a very, very young and youthful Knockcaney team. And it's a Knockcaney team that has gone through an awful lot of transition, Jack, because they were county intermediate champions. They beat Atay in the county intermediate final in 2018. But their sojourn at senior level was all too short, because they were relegated the following year following a defeat by St. Bridget's in the relegation final. And they have been trying to rebuild since, and they have about 9 survivors from the team that won in 2018. But what they have is an awful lot of very, very good young players that have won county under 14, under 16, 8 titles coming through. So some very, very top players. So I would be inclined to discount to a certain degree what transpired between these sides in the opening round. It probably count for something, but I think very little on Sunday. But I'm going with Ula because of the experience element, and because the motivation is going to be there. Having lost last year and lost so narrowly, they will want to atone this year. I think it will probably drive them. They have 4 or 5 players with All Ireland medals, so yeah, I'm going with Ula. I think Ula look best place to win it, but I wouldn't discount Knockcaney.
Yeah, I'd be favouring Ula as well, but it is hard to beat a team twice in 1 year, because you can kind of take your eye off the ball a small bit if you beat them, and the other team then will be gunning for revenge. But I suppose in the county final, there's no lack of motivation for either side. That's on a 3:30. Capamore will be live streamed by Sport Limerick, so anyone that can't make Capamore can watch it live. And I suppose the curtain raiser then at 1 o'clock is Ahan versus Galty Gales. Just looking at their semi-finals, Matt, Galty Gales were very good against St. Ailbe's, but Ahan beat last year's finalists at Hay, by 4 points, which it's kind of the conundrum then. Do you want a semi-final where, you win comfortably and you show it about, or one that you just get through and it gives you confidence then to go into the final?
If it was my choice, Jack, I'd go for the one that I had to battle to get through. Winning a semi-final, by a substantial margin is not the ideal preparation going into a final. But these sides have met already this year, Jack, in the league and down in Mackey Park, and Galty Gales won on that occasion. Now, I think on that particular day that Han were down a few players. But it's a strong Gales side. They've been very, very impressive. Like, Jack, this is a phenomenal performance by Galty Gales. Now, I have been extolling the virtues of Galty Gales men, through these podcasts. But the club was only formed in 2010, Jack, which is 12 years ago. They didn't field in adult until 2015, and I think they won the Junior B in 2017. And now they're on the threshold of possibly winning the Junior A and advancing up to intermediate. Like it's a phenomenal rise through the ranks by any yardstick or benchmark. But Ahan are not going there making up the numbers. No, they beat last year's finalists, last year's finalists and runners-up at Tay. Now, Tay were very, very convincingly beaten in last year's final. We've got to recall that by Adair.
Adair, yeah.
So, but I think this is set up for a very, very good game now, and I'm leaning towards Galty Gales to win, and I'm not being parochial or being parochial in terms of South Limerick or being in terms of my neighbours here, but I'm going for the Gales to win this one.
Yeah, it's always great to see teams up and coming and whatever they're doing out there in Englesburg, Kilbenny area. It's definitely working for ladies football and the men's game. But as I said, those games are streamed 1 o'clock. And go on. They haven't a huge poor players to select from, because it isn't as if they have the whole Galties to select from, because you must remember there's a very, very strong ladies football team in Ballylanders. So the girls are basically looking to their own resources, which we have, which we have chatted often enough in men's football. It's a strictly rural area with a very, very low population, and I think in 12 years it's a phenomenal rise through the ranks. Now they have a couple of players that have won All Ireland. Gráinne Cronin and Shelley Walsh have won All Irelands in 2018, and they have a couple of girls that featured with the Limerick minor team, including Leah Kwan. And of course, Leah Kwan is the daughter of football legend John Kwan. So that will be a name to look out for. Yeah, you can't beat breeding like that. So to have a player of that quality to guide you from an early age will only stand you in good stead. But I suppose moving way across the pond, but keeping on the theme of ladies football, you have an update from Michael Cusack out in Sydney, I believe.
Yeah, Michael Cusack, as you know, the three Cunningham sisters who play camogie with Kildimo and then ladies football with Drumculloch Broadford. Anya, of course, who captained Drum to victory last year in the intermediate championship, and who was a member of the Limerick senior camogie team, a very, very important member of it, may I add. Herself, Roisin and Emer went down under this year, and they linked up with Father Casey's Father Casey's with Michael Cusack's, and they're blazing a trail down there, because they helped Michael Cusicks to complete 3 in a row in the New South Wales Senior Ladies Football Championship. Now, they weren't the only Limerick girls on it. There were 5 in total. The goalkeeper was Linda Lodge from Old Mill, and Sarah Nix was also on the panel from Newcastle West, but was not available on the day of the final. They beat Cormac McAnallans very, very convincingly in the final. Following the final, that was 2 weeks ago. Following the final, the 3 Cunningham sisters were selected for New South Wales for the interstate games, and they helped them to win the interstate championship last Sunday. Now, 2 of the Cunningham girls, Emer and Anya, were selected for the interstate camogie, and they also won that. So they're certainly blazing a trail down under, and they're sadly missed here, but you know, it isn't as if they have forsaken Gaelic games. They're certainly very much to the fore down under.
Yeah, wherever the Cunninghams go, success seems to follow them. It's unique. I suppose treble in a way that they won the Senior Camogie Championship here in 2020. They won the intermediate football in 2021, and they're winning all around them in Australia. So fair play to them for flying the Limerick flag down under. It's becoming a very popular destination for people, but it's great to see that they're sticking to their roots.
Yeah,
and
well,
keeping
it's
the
great
GA
that,
going.
you know, Michael Cusicks could count on 4 Limerick girls starting and a 5th girl who would have probably been starting but wasn't available on the day. It's just fantastic. But you know, great credit to the people that go out and go to these places, you know, and promote Gaelic games. It's absolutely fantastic, and I know we have a listenership and a viewership down under, and to all of them we say, well done, lads. Greetings from Ireland.
Yeah, it's late it's late now over in Australia, so I presume they're not waiting up to listen to us at 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. But I think I have a Michael Cusicks jersey at home. I think Conor Annan brought it home. I think that's who he was playing, but I've seen Darrow wear it at train now, right? So it's a stronghold here in Ballysteen. But moving from ladies football briefly into camogie, Matt, because you know it's kind of up in the air at the moment that we will have the intermediate and junior finals. We know that we went through that with Adair and Croke to meet in the intermediate final. But just on the senior, like, if you could, I suppose, enlighten people as to what's going on, because I presume people will be wondering what's going on. But there is issues behind the scene that's delaying it, and it's difficult for the players first and foremost, but for also people trying to follow it.
Yeah, you know, I would enlighten people if I was enlightened myself, Jack. It's just like that at the moment, but things seem to be at an impasse at the moment, whilst there's, I think, a number of appeals pending. But one thing we can say for definite is that Ahan and Kildimo are through to the semi-finals, and we would like, you know, we're into October. We're into deteriorating weather conditions. We'd like to spare a thought for those 2 clubs who are literally bystanders in all this, and you know, would have been realistically thinking that their championship would be nearly over by now. But it's in the other group where the problem lies. And at the moment, my understanding is that it's subject to a couple of appeals to the Munster Council, and pending the resolution of those appeals will determine who the semi-finalists will be and when the semi-finals will be on. There was an outstanding game in Group 2, which was played last weekend, and Bruff had a big win over Ballingarry, which you know it only you know, we said it at the start of the year that Bruff were a side to watch. And like that, they certainly are an improving side. And the scalp of Ballingarry, they don't come much bigger than that. And you must remember that they put Newcastle West to the pin of their collar. But there's a strong possibility that Bruff will miss out on the A semi-finals. the way it's configured at the moment.
Yeah, just an update there. A good win by, but whether they'll be in the quarters or in the semi-finals remains to be seen. We obviously had a lot of football action over the weekend gone, Matt, and just briefly on the Senior Football Championship semi-finals are pushed out to 23rd, so there's room for teams to recover. But we had Father Casey's and Monaleen coming through. I suppose for Father Casey's, it was definitely a long wait coming to an end. You know, it's incredible to think it was 2009, their previous win in the knockout stages of the Senior Football Championship, considering I think it was only 2 or 3 years in the intervening years they actually missed out in the quarterfinals, you know, so it was a long time coming. They got the job done, 9-point winners over KP, but Kildimo Palace definitely part. There's no doubt in that, but for Casey's, it'll give them huge confidence that they've got over that hoodoo. They also had a really good group campaign, you know, they only lost Newcastle by a point, and that's 5 wins, and losing Newcastle by 1 point is a very good way to prepare going into a semi-final.
Yeah, they're in a strong position, Jack. They're in a very strong position, and as you rightly said, 4 wins in the group game. But it's not just the margin of victory or anything like that. That will be the major boost for them. The real boost here, Jack, is the fact that they arrested that horrendous long losing sequence in the knockout stages, dating all the way back to 2009. But I suppose we should not be entirely surprised because, as I said in last week's podcast, I've seen Father Casey's a couple of times, very, very, very impressed with him on one occasion, less than impressed with him on another occasion. But as I did make the point, all they could play at any stage is what was put in front of them. But I think they're getting it right. They're in the semi-final on merit. They've had a good group stage. They've now got that vital win in the knockout stages under their belts, and it's onwards and upwards from now. And you know, we'll be talking about the semi-finals in 2 weeks' time. But I don't think Adair will really relish the thought of facing Father Casey's. Plus the fact that Adair have had such a long layoff now, and Father Casey's will have the benefit of a quarter final going into it. So, very, very, very interesting. But Father Casey's, in my opinion, you know, at this remove, there are 4 teams left in it. I would say to the other 3, beware of Father Casey's.
Yeah, they were very good now, in fairness, because I had seen KP the previous week, and you know they held us very well, and we've some good forwards, but Rory O'Brien just caused havoc in the KP defence. He was very, very good now, and he scored. He might have scored 1-4, but he probably won 3 or 4 scoreable frees, and as well, Martin Scannell was only too happy to slip over. So they're a very, very dangerous side. Mostly got past St. Kieran's 8 points to 6. I wasn't there, but I can't imagine it was a classic. They did it down to 14 men for a full half. And we did say Monaleen are a different beast in the knockout stages, but they do have Newcastle West to come. But as you said, we'll be talking about that in 2 weeks. But talking about layoffs, and it arises bigger issues. And the PIHC this weekend will be in quarter-final action against Hungary.
You're going away there from the senior football. I was at the Monaleen game, but I was also at the relegation final on Sunday.
I was going to wait to finish on a positive note for you.
What?
I was going to wait to finish on a positive note for you, but go on, yeah.
I was at the Monaleen St. Kieran's game, Jack. I was very, very disappointed with the quality of the fare that was on offer. It was 9 points to 6, actually. And I was desperately disappointed with the performance of St. Kieran's because I thought they were handed a huge advantage about 3 minutes before half-time when Monaleen were reduced to 14 players. And they had to play the entire second half with 14 players. Now, looking at the second half, Monaleen came out after half-time and they were like men possessed. They really, really went for it. And all over the field, and they were full value for their win. But like this was anything but a game for the purists. And Monaghan will have to show considerable improvement, Jack, if they have to trouble Newcastle West. But we know in the past that they're capable of doing that. But just to give you some naked statistics of the game, like John Hayes got 5 of the 6 points for St. Kieran's. 4 of them were from frees. Like Ger Collins got 5 frees for
Monaghan.
Like these are damning statistics in many ways. That it was a poor game of football now, Jack. There's no hiding behind it. It was a poor game. Now, St. Kieran's, I saw them a couple of times during the year, and I thought on Saturday they did not do themselves justice. They're better than that, and they will be very, very disappointed at the manner in which they bowed out of the championship, Jack, after what was a very, very promising group stage. You must remember that this was a St. Kieran's team that just 12 months ago and 2 years ago were battling relegation. And they look more like a relegation side on Saturday than they did a quarter-final team. I was terrible. I was disappointed with him, and I was disappointed for him, because it just didn't happen for him on the day. But we saw an outstanding footballer in John Hayes, and we saw another outstanding one in Brian Donovan from Monaghan.
Yeah, we both backed Kieran's to win, and I thought from seeing them that they had just got their house in order and a lot of the players back from injuries, but obviously, they didn't get the job done. But ever outside performance, these games are there for winning, and that's what Monaghan consistently do in the knockout stages of the Senior Football Championship. You had mentioned that it looked kind of like a relegation, or teams fighting for relegation. You were at the relegation final on Sunday. It must have been a very, very tense and tough first hour for you, but eventually Ballylanders opened up 2-16 to 1-11 winners over Galway to send Galway back to Intermediate Championship after they won it in 2017. And before I get into the game, when was the last time Ballylanders were relegated, Matt?
Well, I can't say, but they have 24 years now on the top flight. They'll be going into they won the Intermediate in 1998, and they won the Senior in 1999. Danny Murphy captained them to win it. So they're going into their silver jubilee at senior level next year. And you're right, it was a very, very, very tense hour. And but Jack, the first half of extra time, I would like to relive it, because it was a special period in the game. Now, just looking at the game itself, it was a good, decent game now, Jack. It was a good, decent game. A huge crowd, decent game. All this who shall before the game that, that this, that, and the next thing was going to happen. Not a bit of it in the first 60 minutes, Jack. But it spilled over. It spilled over in extra time, and there was an incident which necessitated Mike Sexton, the referee, showing 3 red cards, and a couple of minutes later, another 2, one from each side, saw black cards. But Jack, this was nothing more than the product of fatigue and frustration. It would be very, very hard to attribute culpability to any one side more than another. A slight bit of the background to the whole thing, Jack. The last thing either of the sides wanted to do going into the game was put the other down. They're near neighbours, they're keen rivals, but at the end of the day, they're South teams, and that point was made to me a couple of times, before and after the game. But Galway flew out of the traps, and Jimmy Barry Murphy, who came back after injury, and he scored 7 points. One of them, which was an absolute beauty, which tied up the game at the 3/4 stages at 1-9 apiece. Up to that, it hadn't been looking great for Ballylanders, because early in the second half, Galway had gone 4 points clear, 1-9 to 1-9 to 8 points. 1-9 to 1-5. Because Stephen Fox was fouled in the first half and he put away the penalty himself. And immediately at the other end, the high ball into the Ballylanders square wasn't dealt with adequately by the Ballylanders defence and was pounced on by Ger Quinlan for a goal. All this happened in the space of 2 or 3 minutes. But at 1-9 to 1-5, it didn't look great for Ballylanders. Kieran Kelly kicked the point, and then Jimmy Barry Murphy kicked 3 in a row, 2 frees, and an absolute exquisite point to level matters. And Galway regained the lead, Ballylanders levelled. And then right at the death, the 63rd minute, Ballylanders were awarded a free about 60 metres out, and on comes Kieran O'Callaghan to have a potted goal. He was coming on for a blood substitution, and his kick dropped literally a foot short of over the bar. It was a fantastic kick, and it would have been the most dramatic way to win a game. And but it didn't. The final whistle, and we were into time added on. And in time added on, Ballylanders really went to town because they scored 1-4 without reply. An absolutely delightful goal by Danny Froon, finished into the corner of the net. You know, he raced onto a pass from Owen Walsh, and there was only going to be one result. And then when the second period started, Liam Dennehy kicked 2 points within the first 2 minutes of the resumption. And suddenly, from 15 minutes earlier, you could say, Jack, Ballylanders were gone from level to being 9 points ahead, and after that there was only going to be one winner. Now Galway got a late point, but my heart goes out to Galway. I'm so disappointed for them that they're going down. They had a youngish team out on Sunday, and I have no doubt that they will bounce back.
Yeah, it's obviously very disappointing, but you know there is winners and losers in this. And for Ballylanders, to be fair, if you reflect on their whole season, we have done it before, but you know they lost us by 6. They lost the Kieran's by 1. Now they get beat well by KP, but they lost to Dare by a single point, and they beat Celtic Gales then in their final round again, and then they beat Ballylanders. So I mean, it wasn't the worst. It's 2 wins, 2 very narrow losses, and
if you dig behind those statistics, you know, there were 7 points up against St. Kieran's, and St. Kieran's kicked a goal and 5 points without reply to snatch victory. Now they did everything but beat Adair, and the night against Adair, it was a night when Jimmy Barry Murphy was really sadly missed, because when they were so close, you certainly needed him. You know, he's a talisman in those type of situations, and he would certainly have conjured up something for an equaliser, or possibly conjured up something for a winner.
Yeah, but I suppose these are how these things play out. But Ballylanders are safe anyhow, which is the main thing for you. But I suppose commiserations to Galway.
We were talking about the Premier Intermediate hurling a while ago, and they're in a similar situation to KP and St. Kieran's that we were talking about between Ballylanders and Clonroo. But it's a major boost to Clonroo now going into the final round of the Premier Intermediate. The spectre of relegation for the footballers is off the agenda, because there is a considerable crossover in players.
Yeah, it will provide a huge boost. We were talking about lengthy layoffs there. We had mentioned there in the football, and it'll be Newcastle. Another team that I suppose that they end that layoff is the PIHC this weekend when they play Mungret in Claghon on Saturday at 3 o'clock. You know, like for the PIHC point to win walkovers, they only had 3 group games. So I mean, it's been a long time since they played. Before you get into the game, you know, it just not only does the walkovers affect the teams that are playing on the day, but it affects other teams as well. You know, there's a really like that.
Yeah, Jack, this is very, very disappointing. In terms of competitive action, you're facing into a semi-final on next Saturday, with one team having played 3 games and not played a game since the 26th of August. and you have the other team having played 6 games, the last as recently as last weekend. Now, it's no fault of Mungret St. Paul's, nor no fault of the PIHC, but it's very, very difficult for the PIHC in that type of situation. Like they had only 3 games, Jack, and it was really stop-start, and it brings into focus, Jack, this whole thing of walkovers, which has bedeviled a couple of competitions this year. We saw was it in the under 19 football? They were all over the place. There was one particular night where there were 7 games fixed and 5 walkovers and only 2 matches played. This type of thing is ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah.
Now, don't ask me what's the solution and what's the answer, but there's no doubt going into this week's semi-final, the PIHC are the victims of it.
Yeah.
They didn't look for walkovers. The PIHC didn't look for walkovers, but they got them, and they're to their detriment now because they haven't seen action since the 26th. Now they were relegated last year, Jack, and they had realistic ambitions of making a quick return to senior football, but I'm not so sure in the present in the present circumstances that it's going to be feasible for them now.
Yeah, it's certainly advantage Mungret considering they beat Patrickswell. It was a 3-16 to 2-5, and Mungret have been thereabouts for a long time, and this might be the break they need. The PIHC might come in cold, but again, it's a city derby. It's an interesting one, but I mean, if you were to call it,
yeah, I'm calling it for Mungret, Jack. It will be one of our predictions. Will it later?
I hadn't planned on it because the other semi-final isn't on this weekend. Obviously, Sinnans and Drum is next week with Drums.
Yeah, I'm calling Mungret for the reasons that I said, and concurring there with the point that you made about Mungret St. Paul's being knocking at the door for the last couple of years.
Yeah, they'll have to break the ceiling eventually. I think it could be this weekend, but we played in the PIHC game there, the fall outfit, but obviously they still have senior hurling ambitions and intermediate hurling ambitions, which will take a share of attention. But that game this Saturday in Clahan at 3:00, the City St. Sinnans versus Drum is the following weekend. Then, before we go into our predictions, Matt, as well, we do have a Munster ladies football quarter-final this Sunday in Killarney at 1:00. Monaghan are back in action at the famed Dr. Crokes Intermediate Championship. Last year, Monaghan obviously got to the final and lost to Kerry opposition. This time around, they start with Kerry opposition. But you'd imagine if you can come through the Kerry representative, that it probably will be your hardest test.
Yeah, well, they got a fairly tough test last year, Jack. When they went down to Cork to and beat Valley Rovers, so that was. The tests don't come much bigger than that, but they were eventually beaten by the Kerry champions, wasn't it? And
Castle Island.
Yeah,
Desmond,
it's going to be a difficult challenge for Monaghan. There's no question about that. But I feel they're up for it. Talking to them immediately after the final last Sunday week, Jack, they were about to celebrate, but they were also about to refocus very, very quickly, talking to Martin O'Sullivan, the manager, that they were going to refocus immediately. And as far as he was concerned, and I'm sure as talking to some of the girls as well after, Munster is now unfinished business for Monaghan. And certainly I think they will give a good account of themselves. Pity they hadn't home advantage, is what I say. But it is what it is, and there is no point in focusing on the venue or anything like that. They've just got to focus on the opposition and focus on getting the job done.
Yeah, the best of luck to, I suppose, all the players and Martin, as you said there, James Kelly, Joe Lee, Owen Hurley, all the boys involved in them, they're playing in Killarney at 1 o'clock. It's a pity it's clashing with the ladies football finals. It's best luck to Monaghan. They showed last year.
Jamesy Kelly and Mike Quilligan won't have to make a mad dash for any game like they had the day of the county final. They have been so involved with them over the years. Had to make a mad dash at half time in the final against St. Elby's 2 weeks ago and get to Drumculloher for the final group game of the football championship. As you know, Mike Quilligan is the Newcastle goalkeeper and Jamesy is the centre back. So, this time they will be able to give their undivided and total attention to the ladies.
They'll be hopeful that they have a Premier Intermediate semi-final to look forward. That's obviously the last round is on Saturday. But the best of luck to Monaghan this Sunday afternoon at 1 o'clock in Killarney. Before we finish, again, as always, we'll go into our predictions, Matt. And again, it was a below par week for me last week. That's 3 on the bounce. And you're ahead. You correctly called not only Sennons to win, but Sennons to win by 2 points. It's 3 points to you, 5 overall. You're got 1 point ahead. I was ahead by, I'd say, nearly 10 at one stage. But you've crawled your way back. And I don't fancy myself to regather the lead. But for this week, we'll look at the 2 hurling quarterfinals. And we'll also look at the 4 Premier Intermediate games because they're just so interesting to call. And we kind of gave our predictions then for the other games throughout the podcast. You'll find when we were talking about the Junior A and the ladies football finals. But we'll start on Saturday in Kilmallock, Doon, Pallaskenry.
Doon +5.
Doon +5. No fairy tale in the first semi-final, so.
No, I think the Doon will dig it out. They would be very, very. They'll tread very cautiously. They would be very, very aware of the threat posed by Kildimo Pallaskenry, and I'm sure they will have taken stock of them in previous rounds. And I don't think Doon are going to slip up.
Yeah, I'll go Doon by 6. It's more a reflection of what Doon are about. And for KP, their first quarterfinal in 85 years. I think it's fair to say Doon will be heavy favourites for that game. And then Patrickswell versus South Liberties Sunday, 2 o'clock.
Well by 3.
Patrickswell by 3. I'll go the same by 2. I think this will be closer to last year's quarterfinals in that it'll be very, very tight and thereabouts the final whistle. But again, experience at this level will count for a lot, and that's probably through the teams through last year. Is that bit of experience. So I'm going for Patrickswell by 2 points, but hopefully 2 close quarterfinals is all you're hoping for this Saturday, this weekend. Moving into the Premier Intermediate Championship, A&E versus Newcastle West.
I'm going by Newcastle West by 7.
Newcastle West by 7. Is that because they know they have to eat into that scoring difference that you think they'll go for from the very start?
But it's a clash of the All Blacks. Knockaheny don't do rolling over, as I said about somebody else earlier on.
Yeah, I'll go Newcastle by 4 in this game. Glenroe and Drummond Atleka. Obviously, Drummond Atleka need a huge win to have any hope.
Glenroe by 2.
Glenroe by 2. And will that be enough, do you think, for them to go through?
Yeah, it should be enough for them to go through.
Yeah. I'll go Glenroe by 3 in that one. Bruff versus Cappamore.
Bruff by 6.
I do feel like there's a shock in Cappamore, even though their season's over. It'll be the last time we see them. But I will go Bruff tentatively by 2, which will be probably enough for them. And then Effin versus Monaleen.
I'm going Effin by 2. I was tempted to go a draw on that one actually, but I think Effin might shade it.
I've Effin written here, but I might just go with that draw just to go against you. That's a winner take all clash. Really, they're the only two
What
teams, I
is it?
suppose, that know that a win is enough and they don't have to worry about scoring or anything like that.
Yeah.
Which would be,
Well,
it'd be some achievement from Effin in their first year back at the grade to
Monaghan,
get out of there.
were Monaghan to lose, Jack, they have to lose by as tight a margin as possible because of what's coming behind them, Because Glenroe and Brook are right on their tails, and if they lost by 3 or 4 points and Newcastle West win by 6 or 7, changes everything.
Yeah, it does. It's the only game you kind of know that there, and then Effin are kind of and Monaghan know that a win will probably do them, but it's intriguing. But we are pretty much the same in all, except I'm going for the draw there. But if I decide one team, I'd say Effin, but I'll nail my colours to the mast for a draw. But yeah, those are our predictions for this week. As I said, you've gone one ahead, and your camera is gone away from me for some reason. Oh, you're back. But yeah, I don't think we've any other business, Matt. We've looking for my whatever it is called here, my list of what we had to cover. I think everything before I go. There's nothing else.
Agenda, they call it, Jack. Agenda.
Yeah, an agenda. I think I've covered everything on the agenda. Have we any AOBs and any other businesses?
No, I think we have a fair comprehensive a discussion there on the various activities in Treaty Talk for this week anyway. There's quite an amount on over 4 codes really. I don't know what will be on in Camogie, but I do know that you're going to have at least the junior A final and the intermediate final the following week. I'd say, I would imagine so. And hopefully we'll have a resolution of what's going on in the senior, Jack. It's not fair to anybody, the whole thing, So let's hope there'll be a meeting of minds hopefully. And that there'll be a resolution found.
Yeah, please God. We obviously have the senior hurling quarterfinals. We have the junior A quarterfinals, the last round Premier Intermediate. We have ladies football finals, Monaghan and Munster action. We have some semi-finals in the football, and obviously we started with Cueva Costello again. Best of luck to her. I think it was November 26th there to be announced. She was nominated for Camogie All-Star, so please God that she's recognised already for performances, but hopefully that she can just get that bit of silverware to further it. But we know how much she has done for Limerick Camogie.
But we should also say, Jack, that Cueva was named as Player of the Month for June. That's how highly thought her performances were.
Well, she kind of is a sort of player that you kind of have to stand up and take. You couldn't be ignoring the display she put in it in June, but also in May and July. They mightn't have been in as obvious winning efforts, but sometimes the best players in the field are on the team that loses, and I think that was the case for Cueva in the games that Limerick didn't win. She's just one of the best in Ireland, and has been since.
She was so much to the fore, Jack, because the omens weren't good for Limerick coming into the championship. They had been relegated by Offaly above in Moneygall, and part of me says anyway, that being relegated wasn't the greatest disaster of all times. I'd say far from it, maybe even. But the way they turned it around in the championship, and she was one of the catalysts for that, and full credit to her. And as I said, I'll be disappointed for her, and I'll be very disappointed if those in their wisdom tasked with the job of selecting the 15 don't include her name.
Yeah, we've had issues with All-Stars before. We probably will, between Cian Sheehan and Cueva, and obviously the hurlers as well. So please God, we will get a few All-Stars, that's for sure. But hopefully we'll have one in each code. But that's 80 minutes. 80 minutes on the clock. I call it a day there. Best luck to all the teams and managements and referees, I suppose, over the weekend. Hopefully the weather will be all right, it'll be bearable as we approach the winter months, and hopefully we have some cracking games. So a huge thank you to you and to everyone that listened, Matt, and we'll talk again soon.
Impression again, we get all
Thanks,
what
Jeff.
you put into it. It's like a walk of life. If you're good enough, go out and get it, no more about it.
Not so much control in the centre of the field from Kilkenny as Richie Bennett sends it high and over the bar.
Your mother sends you down to the shop for a pound's worth of goods and she gives you 50 pence. You can't get the pound's worth of goods, can you?
Just about kept in. Oh, well done, Shawnee Buckley. To do that to Tomas O'Shea, he deserves to score from here. One of the highlights of the Sunday game.
Limerick went out there from the word court today. No more about it. They made all the running, that was it. Put the ball over the bar and the packed it and that's it. No ifs, no buts.
Is there much time left? We have a couple of injuries. Here comes Kieran Carey. Carey leading the charge of the right brigade. 45 metres out. He's a chance to score. He's put it high. He's put it over.
There's no sympathy in this game for anybody.